Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Jenkins, an overview of a configure global security options, where we have here options like in security Jenkins define who is allowed to access, use the system, and so on and so forth. Let me log in into that in Jenkins. So I'm in already logged into the Jenkins, and same like in what we did that in previous lectures, we have a two-way to navigate it in that options. Like click on the drop down just beside that in a Jenkins, and then you will be see that manage Jenkins, and where we have a configure global security. So global security at the moment, there's no options for sign up and other options, but in here we'll be see that in so many configurations, and you have to just remember it. So like in configure global security while doing the authentications is first. So in authentications we can set that in disable remember me. So if you click on that, it will not remember me like in a like in that options. After that we have a security realm. So in security realm we have a delegate to servlet container. So this will be delegate to that in servlet containers. Once you'll click on that in again questions mark, you'll see that in these are the options we have. And so it was there before 1.164 and so forth, which is not needed, but by default we have options now. Jenkins one user database, meaning once you'll install that in Jenkins, you have options to store that in your one user database, and you can use that in allow user to sign up. At the moment this options is not there, and by default this is disabled. So we'll do that in this ones in upcoming lectures while doing this in allow like in one dedicated options for and that. Other than that, we have a third options which is LDAP. So let's say your organization is using that in LDAP, you can choose that in LDAP options. You can provide that in a server, LDAP server details and port. Then all users will become. After that, you can put that in some more details like a root DNS, user search base, and all LDAP related configurations. And so in that case, there's no need to manage that in user like in uh, into that in Jenkins on use database. So most of the organizations they used to do that in LDAP configurations, and if you don't want to do that in any other configurations, you can like any user login related, you can choose that in a none. So after that, you have a authentications, we have authorizations. So authorizations are a strategy. We have authorizations, we can anyone can do anything. So if you choose that in first options, which is the anyone can do anything, which is not good, but the options is there. If let's say you have a user 1 2 3 4 5, and anyone users log in and they can do that in anything. After that we have a legacy mode. So in that in legacy mode, if you'll choose these options, then you will be see that in a it will be we have exactly the same as Jenkins 1.6, namely if you that in a admin role, you will be grant full control over that in access of that system. So I don't know what was there in earlier, so let me go and leave it, because I want to see that in what was the default options for that. And authorizations, it was there for uh, uh, login in users can do anything. Okay, so if user is logging into that in a Jenkins, they can do anything. So you can also choose that in allow enemies use read access, or you can choose the matrix based security or project based matrix authorization strategy. So generally once you are using that in your one database or like in a LDAP or any other combination, so after choosing that in any one of that in a authentications, like in any one options, then you have to choose that in a access. So that's a very important one, like in a matrix spec security. And if you're using that in a multiple projects, then last two options will be like in these ones. So here you will be see that in like in anonymous users and authenticated user. So once you add that in other users, so you can see that in what that users we can do that, like in overall agent jobs run and many more so options they can do that in, if you choose the matrix specs, it will be remaining same, but you can add that in add users to the or groups into that in matrix specs. If you choose that in a project base, you can still have options to uh, add that in add users or group to this one. So if you click on add users or group, first it's asking user or group name, but it's not suggested to do from here at the moment, because we are just trying to understand that in what are the configurations you can do that in from configure global security. We'll see that once we'll create that in allow that in user sign up, and then we'll do that in a grant access for that as a matrix base. So let it be by default. And a markup formatter, you can choose that in plain text or safe HTML. There are two options we have. After that we have agent configurations. So in agent configurations, you can configure the TCP port for inbound agents, which is like in fixed port or random or disable. So by default it will be disable, but most of the time it will be there the fix. You can choose that in a protocol, like in agent. After that we have a cross request forgery protections, where you can choose that in Crumble you can enable the proxy capability as well for these options. And hidden security warning, you can like configure that in security warning as well, which is related to a script security plugin which is XX vulnerability. And then we have a API token. So for these ones, especially once you are using that in GitLab and Git or any other repository server where we need like an API related token, you can use this option. So where it's clearly stated that in first two options is not recommended, and enable API tokens uses statistics. After that we have a agent master security. We can enable that in agent master security access control, and that you can define in that in rules can be trick here. You can see that in more details what are that in Jenkins project website can be configured for this. After that in last options we have a SSH server. So SSHD port we can choose the fix random and disable as well. After that just click on the apply and save, and that in your configurations will be saved, which is related to especially security related. In upcoming lectures we'll see that in one option, so sign up and creating that in a matrix. So not now in, but in like in while going through that in manage configurations, we'll see that options. um, you know so that's all about in that in this lecture, so especially for configure global security and what are the options we have for especially doing that in configurations for the Jenkins. And thanks for watching.